In order to access a property, like we have our property that is defined inside the class, and to access it from an object that is created from that class, you have to give it an accessor. And accessor practically establishes what level of accessibility that property has. There are three of them: public, protected, and static. But for the time being, I will resume to public because we are at the beginning, but we are going to learn as well for the other two. So you have to define with the keyword public just before declaring your property. Always. It is mandatory that you do it. Otherwise, you are going to have errors just like we did before. And now let's go and see if we can, for example, echo out whatever is to be found in this property and from our object, because our object in fact has all the properties from the class that we just defined. So it has our property variable or property, and it also has this return string property, which is in fact a method. And let's go and see if that is working. And you can see that it returns I'm here. Now let's go and see if we can do the same for our method. And remember, when you are calling methods from the object, you have to put also this round parenthesis at the end as a regular function. Control S to save, and remember here we placed no accessor. And you can see that for the functions, for the method, by default it is public. You don't have to mention if you are leaving default public. So what you have to know here is that public is by default for methods or functions. Before jumping to protected, let's see how we can refer to this property when we want to refer it inside the class test. So let's say that, for example, I want here on line 12 to add to whatever this return string method is doing, to add also this property which has the value I am here. And to do that, you might know already, and I guess that you have to know that, we can place this concatenation operator, which is this dot in PHP. And let's say that now we want to refer to our property, but remember we are inside the class test. So to refer to its own property, you have to make a $sign and to say this. And now you can specify which property you are referring from inside the class. So this is our property. But be very careful when you are writing our property, you don't write it with $sign before, because you already placed it here. And this is the syntax that you should use always, because otherwise it won't work. Control S to save and leave a space here. And let's go and see if return string now is returning whatever we have here plus from inside object. And you can see it added I am here. So remember, before jumping further, that in order to refer to itself, to its own property or to its own function, you have to place this keyword with $sign before, and after the single arrow you can place the name of that property but without $sign. Let's learn how to refer to its own method from inside the class. For whatever reason, let's say that we have a function that is doing something like, I don't know, echo out. That's it. It doesn't matter the name. It's just for test purposes. And let's say that this has to return whatever this function, this method is doing. So is gonna call this return string, and that's it for time being. And remember, return string is returning this from inside object string and is concatenating with the property itself. So that means that if I'm accessing echo out, I'm gonna have whatever this return string is echoing out. So let's do that and replace, so that you can see that referring to its own method is similar to referring to its own property, but the single difference is that you have to refer it as a function, so you have to place these round brackets as well. Control S to save, and let's go and see if we have the same result. And you can see we have the same result. Let's learn about protected. Let's say that this property has a protected access. Protected means that in fact this property cannot be accessed directly from an object that is created from this class that we are dealing with. So for example, let's try to access our property just like we did it before, and it worked when it was public. And let's say that we want out of the newly created object to get out whatever is inside our property, and it should be I am here. Let's go to our browser and let's see what the error is telling us. And you can see that it's telling us directly that it cannot access a protected property. Test, and is indicating which property does not have access to. So in this kind of situations, when we are making mistakes, this error is going to signal you directly which is the cause of your problem. And that is very simple and helpful. But what you need to understand is that in order to access correctly a property that is protected by its accessor, you need to access it only throughout methods inside this class. So for example, you can see that here we access this property from inside a method, and guess what? It's working or not. Let's try and see that. And let's return our string, or echo out is the same thing, because echo out in fact is doing whatever return string is doing. But let's try with return string. Control S to save, and let's see if we can access it. And you can see I am here, which was added to the original string, can be accessed. So we have access to a protected property from inside the return string method. Let's say that for example we want to deal with this property which is protected, and we want to get and to set its value. We cannot do directly like we can do with the public. Let's say for example that we have this one public. I'm coming back to the public because it is very important that you can see the difference. So I created an object, and now I can access directly this our property. And I really don't want to echo it out. I just want to give it another value than the original one. And that value is going to say value changed. And now let's see if we can echo out this new added value for this property inside the object. And you can see that we have value changed. So that means that when we have a public property, we can change its value very simply by accessing it from the newly created object with this single arrow, and then with the equal operator we can assign it a new value. It is very simple to work with, but for protected we need some methods to set the new value that we want because remember, we can access this only throughout a method, and we can get that value also with another method, and we will see that very soon.